I think you just need to push that blue button. Why are you looking at me? Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I don't know if you see this as good or bad news, but this will be the third and final week of our series about Jesus feeding the 15,000. And I know when you read it in the Bible, it says 5,000, and that's what we typically know it as. But the reality of it is, including women and children, it was closer to 15,000. And I don't want us to lose sight of the magnitude of this miracle. And not only did he feed 15,000, that in and of itself is quite the feat, but he did it with, I literally typed here, some bread and fish sticks, because that's about what it was, just a few little dinner rolls and a few fish. Like, if you brought that out to me at a meal, at a dinner, I might curl my eyebrows. And then you're talking about 15,000 people. And not only is that in and of itself a miracle, but there were 12 baskets of leftovers. Again, it's a story that we see in all four of the Gospels, which are the first four books of the New Testament. And I highlighted the different authors and the different writing approaches of the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, just to give us a little bit. It's just the little differences that stand out, and it's not as subtle as they are. They speak volumes, just as much as in the unification of the Gospels. Just the little unique writings stand out for good reason, and I hope you're growing to appreciate the different perspectives. This is week 3 of the same Bible story, but there's so much depth, so many layers, so many details and perspectives in the differences, as well as life application. In week 1, we talked about how we have to operate and even minister from a painful place sometimes. Jesus lost someone he loved dearly, separated himself just to kind of be alone, and he wasn't alone for long. And he ended up having to minister to 15,000 people from a place of heartbreak and heartache. And sometimes that's the reality. We can't allow a season of seclusion or to surrender our purpose that God has in store for us. And we also saw in week 1 how there's a blessing in the breaking. Last week we talked about giving and how order is important and how obedience is important and how organization is important and also how ownership is important. In the past 2 weeks we've pulled scriptures from Matthew, Luke, and John. So for this last week of this series, we're starting in the Gospel of Mark. Mark chapter 6, starting at verse 30. Says, the apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour and told him all they had done and taught. So just visualize this for a moment. The 12 had gone out and ministered, and God moved and God ministered through them and used them. So here they come to Jesus, just like you or I would be, to your mentor, to your spiritual leader, or whoever sent you out to do whatever in his name. And you came back and said, it worked. Like, you're right. Like, we saw you do it, but your dad moved in us and through us. And they're excited, they're amped up, and they're sharing the results. They're sharing the fruit of their labor. But Jesus had endured some heartache. So then Jesus said, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while. So they had been working hard. They had been putting in hours. Jesus was mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually drained in that moment. So he's like, let's go, guys. Like, you can tell me all about it, and we're just going to fill back up. We're just going to take a break. He said this because there were so many people coming and so many people going that Jesus and his apostles didn't even have time to eat. So I don't know where it was. I don't know if it was in some sort of dramatic recreation of this or some movie, but it's literally, we're on a boat. They're like, we're just going to cross over and we're going to go over there and just isolate, just be by ourselves for a while. So they're going from here to there when this huge crowd of people is running along the shore to get across in some proximity to the time of when the boat would be landing. So they're just going along, just kind of the wind in their hair. It's already feeling peaceful. And all of a sudden they see this wave of people, thousands and thousands and thousands of people basically following them. So they left the boat for a quiet place where they could be alone. But many people recognized them, saw them leaving, and people from many towns ran ahead along the shore and got there ahead of them. Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. They just needed something. They just needed, and like when you suffer loss, or when you're just at this place in life where you have nothing left and you don't want to talk to anybody, you don't want to see anybody, you just want to be by yourself. And then you're faced with the exact opposite of that immediately. Don't raise your hand. But who responds in that moment with compassion? It's tough. And you're not a horrible person or a horrible Christian for not meeting that moment compassionately. But again, if we are to be Christians, if we are to be like Christ, then by his example, he doesn't say, thou shalt do this, but he's showing, thou shalt do this. And we are faced with this reality on any given day of any given week because we go through stuff. Anybody had a hard week this week? Anybody anticipating a rough one in the week to come? You know, like, it's life, and it's not always birds chirping and butterflies on your ear and just, oh, look, it's life. With other people's reality, without Jesus, just sheep without a shepherd. And Jesus in you, hopefully, prayerfully, from the time you open your eyes and your feet hit the ground, he is Lord. And him in you is hypersensitive to the sheep without a shepherd that you're about to encounter on any given day. Yeah, but me, I get it. I do, truly, I get it. And like we sang the first song, there's no halo. There's no holier than thou. There's no Mr. Righteous standing up here, pointing fingers and condemning and passing judgment. I'm right there. And I don't always do it. And I don't always do it well when I do it. But the fact of the matter is that Jesus in us, as followers of him, needs to respond to those uncomfortable moments with compassion. So he began teaching them many things. Would we have been any less impressed with this man Jesus, knowing the whole backstory before this, and he sees them as sheep without a shepherd, and his heart goes out to them? If he had just said, guys, I know you just got back from your ministry, but I need some time. Can you love on these guys and just give me 5 minutes, 5 hours, whatever it may be? Would we have thought less of him? that would have certainly been relatable. That certainly would have been relatable to him, to us. But he moved in a way for us to make relatable to him. Like, I wouldn't operate in that, Jesus, but as a follower of you, and you met me right in my sheep without a shepherd, you met me with compassion in a moment where I didn't know which way was up, and you stepped into the reality of my situation. Let's go. Late in the afternoon, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place. It's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to nearby farms and villages and buy something to eat." But Jesus said, "You feed them." They were hungry. We've already talked about that the past couple weeks. They were trying to pass the buck on the crowd. Hey, these guys are getting hungry while their stomachs are growling themselves. Hey, we should probably let these guys go so they could eat. And Jesus responds, "You feed them." With what? How? You holding out on us? You got a cooler full of something back there? Like, how are we going to do this? We'd have to work for months to earn enough money to buy food for all these people. It's getting late. It said late in the afternoon. It's getting late. People are hungry. And there are sheep without a shepherd. It's getting late. You know who you are here today or watching online. If someone asks you, "Hey, you want to do something?" And you're like, "Now? It's like 8:30, man. It's getting late." I remember when 8:30 was, the night was just getting started. But it's getting late. Or you have to be somewhere and the time is approaching when you need to be there. And if you don't get in the car right this moment, you're going to miss it. It's getting late. This is more than just a conclusion to a sermon series, but it's a call to action. What are you going to do? What are we going to do? What roles are we going to play in the miracles, in the ministry, in the mission that God has for you and I? In our text from Mark, we see that they were out evangelizing and reaching the lost, and miracles were happening, and Jesus was healing people. And in the middle of it all, Jesus sees the need, sees people with a need for a shepherd. And then as it gets later in the day, they're hungry. And I love how in the middle of the supernatural, in the middle of chains breaking and bondages people being set free, as well as perhaps blinded eyes being opened and lame walking, all in the middle of a crowd of 15,000, Jesus was moved by their appetite. Jesus was moved because they hadn't eaten. Not at the expense of the miracles of the supernatural taking place, but he was moved by the physical just as much as he was the spiritual. The practical need. Yes, my Father God is showing up and his Spirit is reigning, but they're also hungry. There's also a practical need that needs to be met. And I don't want to ever be a church that has such a supernatural move of God and our neighbors are going without food. I'm glad we serve a God of miracles. I'm glad we have a supernatural God as Lord. And I long for those moves. We need those moves. But we can't forget verse 37. You feed them. You feed them, Jesus said. We talked last week about how Andrew sees the kid with the basket of lunch. And Jesus is teaching to the crowd. And Andrew mentions to Jesus, I saw this kid over here with some bread and some fish. You feed them. I did see this kid with some bread and some fish. So he hands, this is all he has. This is all we can get. And he hands it to Jesus. Jesus takes it. He blesses it. He breaks it. He didn't go into the kitchen and do some miracle. Andrew hands it to him. Jesus blesses it, breaks it, and gives it back to him. To which I can only imagine Andrew sitting there going, I know what's in here. I'm full aware that this isn't going to feed this. I was expecting you, as the Son of the living God, to do more than this. I only gave you what I had. I was expecting you, in all of your power and all of your authority, to do more than this, and absolutely more than give it back to me. What am I supposed to do with this? And you and I have that interaction with him regularly. God, this is all I have. It's nothing, but it's all I have. And we've talked about it the past couple of weeks. That's all he's wanting from us. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be efficient. It doesn't have to be the best. It just has to be everything that we have. All that I've got. But the kicker is, when we give it to him, he blesses it. And sometimes there's a breaking in that. And it's not always comfortable. And it hurts a little bit. But the mystery comes when he hands it back to us. Because we're expecting him and all of his power and all of his authority, when we give him everything, for him to give us some dynamic and powerful and authoritative. We're disappointed when he's using what we gave him back to us to be used for him. Our expectation is higher than that, because why would he use what I gave him? You got to tweak it a little. You got to increase it a little. And we don't expect our participation to be a part of the increase. We don't anticipate our participation to be a part of the multiplication. We just want him to do it and us to just take credit for what we originally had given. And I can't help but think of Andrew's, because the expectation wasn't great to begin with. 15,000, some bread and fish. It just doesn't add up. Does anybody still have one of those? I don't know. Sorry, guys. The younger, I don't know where that came from. I'm old. I can't help it. Wow. Anyway. Does it pull out a tape? The paper? Anyway. It just doesn't add up, Jesus. I've seen what you can do. I've experienced what you've done. But this just doesn't add up. But I also can't help but imagine Jesus looking at Andrew, standing there with this confused and scared look on his face, wondering, why are you still standing there? Why aren't you sharing what I've blessed? Why aren't you breaking up the groups in 50 and doing what needs to be done? If you gave and trust that I blessed, then trust to give. Trust to be used. regardless of what it looks like, regardless of what the perception is or isn't, regardless of the fact I may or may not have moved just how you think I should have moved. I already blessed, I already broke what you gave, so go and do. And I believe with everything that's within me, this is a message more than for Andrew. This is a message for each and every one of you listening to this message today. Why are you just standing there? Why do you have this scared and dumbfounded look on your face? You've given, he's blessed, now go and do. You've given, he's blessed, he's touched, he's blessed you. You've given him you. If you call yourself a follower of Jesus today, you've surrendered yourself to him and trust that he has blessed what you have given. So don't just stand there. Well, when are you going to do this? Go and do. You move. You trust. You believe. You have the faith that you've been blessed and touched. Oftentimes we find that we hand Jesus our things, our issues, our ideas, our plans, and he blesses it. But then we get scared when he hands it back to us. We just want him to just take the reins and just do it. But we freak out and panic when he hands it back to us. Because he says in the blessing, he's already given you everything that you need to accomplish it. It's not that he's given the same thing back. Andrew, in that moment, okay, I'm giving you some dinner rolls and some fish sticks. Nobody switched the basket. I was standing right here the whole time. The reality of it is, you just handed me back some dinner rolls and some fish sticks. The situation hasn't changed, God. Well, what's in the basket isn't the reality. That's just what you're seeing. So when we come to him with all that I have, and the hair on the back of our neck doesn't stand up, or we don't get goosebumps, or we feel like we left the same as it did when we came in this morning, that doesn't mean that nothing has shifted, or that nothing has changed, or that he didn't hear your cry, or that he didn't do anything. It means that it's blessed. It means that you just have to have faith and trust and believe that even though you can't see it or understand it, you gave it to him with nothing but hope and nothing but expectation and nothing but faith. And because he's God, he blessed and he moved and he gave it back to you to put feet to it. And when we step into that new thing with the blessed, it's all I got. Expect things. Don't quit. Don't give up. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope either. And just trust and believe and hold on to the promises in his word. He's calling us to accomplish great things. The reality of it is we can't do it on our own. But when we give him all that we have, he's going to bless all that we have. And then the possibilities are endless when we put it into action. Oftentimes we give him everything we have with the best intentions. We're trusting, believing. And then we just settle in, get comfortable, and just keep asking God, well, when are you? I gave. I have faith. I'm just waiting for you. And I feel God saying, you gave. I blessed. I'm waiting for you. And that's not a condemning statement, but it's a relational statement. He's including us. He wants us to be a part of what he wants to accomplish. And like, that may freak you out. And I kind of hope it does. I hope that your dreams and goals and ambitions are so ginormous that him wanting you to be a part of it scares the crap out of you. I do. Because if it's not that big, why do you need him for? Just go do it. But when we're shooting for the stars, and there's that little inkling of hope that we may just hit our mark. It's all I got, God. The reality of my perception of it, it's not much. When I decided and unashamed, no, I don't even know if that's the right word. When I decided finally, after years in church and even several years in ministry, that I decided enough is enough, no more games, and I'm all in. I literally talked to God and said, I've proven time and time again that I'm a mess. I got nothing. I don't have any self-worth, much less to perceive you have any worth in me for your kingdom. Like, help me not to blow it. And then when I felt like I blew it, help me not to blow it. And just something happened. And it wasn't because I ever had enough to give. But it came to the point where no matter what I have, it's yours. And he met me there. And he blessed the crumbs that I had. And he's moving, and he's working, and he's growing, and he's cultivating, and he's reaching, and he's reaching. And it has nothing to do because I ever had enough of anything. He's handing it back to us and said, what are you waiting for? I've already done it. We gave it to him. He broke it, blessed it, gave it back. Now it's up to us to go and do something with it. Jesus always turns what is nowhere near enough to always more than enough. That's kind of his thing. That's just kind of what he does. When he blesses it, it's more than enough. We have all that we need when he blesses it. When we make ourselves available and give him access to everything, then when he blesses it, it's all that we need. The disciples saw one basket of food trying to feed 15,000 people. And I'm not trying to give the disciples a bad rap. Like, I would be the same. Like, nice try, Andrew. Have you seen the crowd? You believe this guy? Like, there's no way. They saw one basket. Mark 6:42-43 says, they all ate as much as they wanted. Not as much as there was. They were full. They were content. And like, when Nikki and I eat, she gets full before I do. Actually, we probably get full about the same time, but I just don't stop when I'm full sometimes. There was people in the crowd that probably should have stopped eating a fish ago or a biscuit ago. But man, this is pretty good. Kudos to your mom, kid. This is good stuff. What's the recipe? What's the secret? Because when Jesus blesses what we have, it's not just, I've had better. It's the best. There's nothing comparable. It doesn't make sense because all I had was this. But this is better than anything that this could have ever have been. How did you do it? It's more than just being full. It's more than just being content. It's being blessed. They ate all that they wanted. And afterward, the disciples picked up 12 baskets of leftover bread and fish. So one kid brought a basket with some bread and fish. But somebody had to have brought at least 11 other baskets. What happened to those lunches? Or did they weave them? And I'm not going anywhere with this, really. I'm literally just posing questions. Like, we started with one basket. Yeah, the miracle is in what the contents of the baskets, but where did the 11 other baskets come from? Somebody had to have brought something. Perhaps they didn't trust a miracle, and Andrew didn't see them. This isn't as, I'm just, maybe. Or maybe it was left over from the last crowd and nobody took the basket with them. Whatever the case may be, I think it's interesting that there was 11 baskets that just came from someplace. To take it a step further, 12, the number 12 in Scripture is a number of miracles. Take it a step further, there's 12 baskets left over. They started with one. Now there's 12 baskets of leftovers. And how many disciples are there? 12. So they all went home with the to-go box from what started with a little kid's lunch. But Jesus pulled them into the miracle. Jesus included them into the miracle. We have already talked about this. Could God had opened up the heavens and sent manna from heaven? Sure, he's done it before. But God included man and women and children into the equation and wanted their faith to increase, wanted them to be blessed because of the blessing. They wanted them to be blessed because of the sacrifice of a child who maybe he gave like this, yeah, do whatever you want. Or maybe it was like, almost like a tug of war, like, what if I don't get enough? I'm a kid, but I'm hungry. However he gave. And God responded. Jesus blessed it. And then there was 12 baskets of leftovers. They came home from their ministry tour. They were tired and they were hungry. And now they're inserted into more ministry. In their minds, they were done. You have a long day at work? You're not even home yet, and you've already checked out. You're already in your comfortable clothes. The air is just right. Fan in your face. Come on, somebody. And you've already checked out. But then something went wrong and you have to go back. Or you get a call and something happened and you're not able to go home. It doesn't have to be horrible, but it's something is preventing you from rest. Like it's not a good feeling. It's not something that, okay, no problem. Like, no, you're already in bed or in your favorite chair or whatever the case may be. That's how they were. They had already, the tour is over. We're with Jesus now. If anything happens, he's got it. We can just kind of set the cruise and just relax. Why is the beach moving? Oh my gosh, that's like 15,000 people. Why are they moving the same direction we're moving? Oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to rest just yet. They were already done, but the reality was they were just getting started. Giving and serving to the cause of Christ comes at a cost. Salvation is absolutely free to receive, but the cost of discipleship is laying down your own life, taking up your cross, and following him. The disciples didn't eat first. They served, but they were absolutely fulfilled. That's what it means to be a leader and a servant of Christ. When we prioritize Jesus and we prioritize others first, then we can have confidence that God will take care of us. The next miracle that we read about after this feeding of the multitude in Mark 6 and 7 is Jesus and then Peter walking on water. That may seem insignificant, but what we see here is Jesus including the disciples and doing a miracle for others, then doing a miracle for them. He included them in a miracle for 15,000. They had just ministered. They were tired and hungry, and Jesus needed them to do more. And I can't imagine with complete certainty that all 12 of them were like, okay, Lord, whatever you need, Jesus. I would imagine if you were in that crowd, you might have gotten served like this. All right, here's your bread. Here's your food. They were hungry. They were like hangry, if you will. Like they were done. But Jesus included them in that. So I would imagine before the storm hit them on their way out back into the water, that they were like finally able to let their guard down and truly rest. But at the same time, like, yo, what? What is that on the water out there? So they were still recovering from being used in a miracle first. And then Jesus performs one of the most mind-blowing miracles. And then he includes, you think this is cool? Come on here and walk with me. Say what? I really do have a hard time of hearing in my left ear, so I would have to have been like, say that again, Jesus, you're in my bad ear. I say it all the time at work. People start walking on the right side of me so I can actually hear what they're saying. Say that again, Lord. What's that? If that's truly you, but there is an order. He used them, he incorporated them, he included them in a supernatural miracle. Just because it met a physical need doesn't make it any less supernatural. 15,000 people ate with 12 baskets of leftovers. What started, you could fit in your hands. But then, because of their surrender and their obedience and their oneness for the one common goal was being used by Jesus, then Jesus includes them, invites Peter out to. And don't allow the power or the significance to be lost in the familiarity. He invited him to walk on water. Who does that? Anybody ever walked on water? No one? No! You don't walk on water. It's liquid. It's supernatural. Both were accomplished from an invitation from the Messiah. Both served different purposes, but they had emptied themselves out to serve and to minister. And then Jesus, for lack of a better word, rewards them with another supernatural miracle that was for a completely different purpose, for their own revelation, for their own fulfillment, for their own, just for them. And you and I in 2020 too, but significant. It's getting late. Heaven and hell are becoming more and more of a reality to people. And we have to give God access to everything. Matthew's gospel says we only have this lunch of 5 loaves and 2 fish. We only have this one basket. It's only this. It's hard to fulfill the mission when our outlook is always, we only have this versus take all that I have? What if God isn't blessing what we have because we haven't given him access to it? We miss out on miracles because of things like, I only have this much to give. Because the thought behind that is, I would give more, but I only have this much to give. I would serve more, but I only have this much time to give. Right? It's not just dollars and cents. It's talents. It's the gifts that God has put in us. Well, I would use that for the kingdom, but I also do it for my job, or I also do it for this or whatever. And I only have so much time to give. And I am not standing up here. Nobody is ever standing up here telling anybody, forsake your sanity, your peace of mind, and your family life to do more for the church. Don't get it twisted. That being said, we all have contributions. I didn't build this church. A guy sitting back there had a lot to do with it, though. So, we all have different gifts. But when we come together, we're the body. If we all did the same thing, that'd be boring. And we really wouldn't make much progress. But when we come together, watch out. Not only are we going to advance the kingdom, but we're going to stomp on some devils along the way too. But it's only accomplished when we work together as one. The world wants us to pick sides. The world wants us to pick fights. The world wants us to pick battles. But we see the example of Jesus in Scripture tells us that he had compassion on them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd. And you or I might look at them as here's a bunch of sheep, as in a negative context. But Jesus didn't say, oh, you're just a bunch of sheep, period. They were a bunch of sheep that needed him. They were a bunch of sheep, and sheep landed with this audience. There were shepherds and sheep all over the place. So that was in context, oh, I know exactly what he's saying. Sheep are dumb. They're dumb animals. He's not saying you're dumb. They're dumb. He was saying that they're just kind of and they needed someone to come who knew where they were going, who knew the potential in them to keep them on the right path. The shepherd. That's all it's implying. So it's not like they're just a bunch of sheep. They're a bunch of sheep in need of a shepherd. We're the type of church to show the sheep longing to hear the shepherd's voice, exactly who that voice is in Jesus. Mark 6:34 says, Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. He saw them, he had compassion on them in his own distraught state of mind and heart, and then he started teaching them. It's getting late. We're short on time. The Bible tells us that nobody knows the day or the hour of Jesus' return. We have access to the miraculous. And God is asking, will we give him access to what he has already given us so that he can bless it and it can be multiplied and distributed? What if there's a clock counting down backwards until the moment of our death or until the moment of Jesus' return? What if that existed? Because there is absolutely a beginning and an end. But yet we live like there is no end. Or maybe sometimes like there is no heaven or hell. Maybe there's no urgency for you because you know Jesus and you're going to heaven. And I hope that's the case for you here today. But there are people that we all know and love that don't know him. And it's getting late. It's getting late. The clock is winding down for addictions to be broken in our community. It's getting late for the cycles of abuse and crime and murder and other cycles to be broken in our community. It's getting late for the school-age kids that have to go to school hungry every day. It's getting late, but you and I have the answer. You and I have the answer that this community needs. And his name is Jesus. We aren't here to just be consumers. We're not here to just hoard the very thing that our community needs. It's getting late. It's getting late for people who need a miracle. Stand with me if you would, please. Good enough is no longer good enough. The time for passive Christianity is over. It's getting late. The time for consumer Christianity is over. Our community needs more Andrews from our text. Each and every one of you have something in your basket. You brought something that you intended to consume. What would happen if you choose to give Jesus access to your gifts today? When God looks at you, he doesn't see someone who isn't good enough or only has this, who only has just a little bit. When he looks at you, he sees the ingredients for a miracle. He sees just what your fellow man needs. So I leave you with this today. Whatever it is that you have, give it to him. Watch him bless it. And then enjoy the leftovers. Let's worship.
We're going to sing Spirit Breakout again. And